Hi folks, HR Funk here. With my first video of 2025, I hope all of you had a safe and festive holiday season. I had a great one myself, and actually for me it hasn't quite ended yet because as I record this, this is December 29th of 2024, but I wanted to get this video completed so I can get it uploaded and out to you all sometime in early January, and this is going to be my much anticipated range report on the Ruger/Magpul RXM pistol. If you saw my shop review, you know that I already went over all of the features and functions of this handgun. If you missed that, I would encourage you to go back and take a look at it. I also gave a preliminary range report in that video, but since that time I've been doing quite a bit more shooting with it. I just put another 150 rounds through this pistol yesterday, and by the way, a quick note about this video, I am in a rush. We are leaving tomorrow to go away for at least a week. We're going to be in Nashville, Tennessee for New Year's Eve. How cool is that? So this video might be a little rough around the edges. It might not quite be the video that you typically see from me, but I am really trying to get this done so I can get this report up. And again, all of you are going to be able to see it in a reasonable amount of time. So some thoughts on the Ruger RXM to this point. Now, I have 250 rounds, actually just slightly over 250 rounds through this pistol. And the first thing I'll say is its reliability has been outstanding. I have done nothing to this handgun. I took it out of the box, I went out and started shooting it, I haven't cleaned it, I haven't lubed it, and it has not missed a beat. To include yesterday, when I ran 9 different types of defensive ammunition through this handgun, I had 8 defensive hollow points, and I had one of them that was the Leahy type defensive bullet. It's the Extreme Defense or something like that. I'll show it to you here in a little bit. That has a bullet that looks kind of like a Phillips head screwdriver, and none of that has caused any problem rather for functioning in the RXM. Similarly, with ammunition that it likes, the accuracy is not bad with the RXM. I'll show you some targets here in a little bit that I was shooting yesterday when I was using all those different types of ammunition, and along with function testing, I was also testing each of those for accuracy, and some of the groups are pretty darn impressive. Others are okay defensive accuracy, but not really anything to get excited about. And for this handgun, I would say that's pretty good. There was nothing that I thought was so bad that it would not be okay for defensive use. There was nothing over 3 inches thereabouts or so at a distance of 15 yards, which is the distance at which I was testing it. The sights on this pistol are good. I've not done a lot of shooting with the iron sights, but when I have back early on, it shot very well. It shot to point of aim, so no issues with the sights. These are steel sights, so a lot of people don't like the Glock polymer sights, and these are steel. The optic mounting platform also, as I mentioned in the original video, is very, very good. I have mounted the Olight O-sight to this pistol. I mounted it early on. That's what I was using yesterday for all of my accuracy testing. And it has not come loose at all. I do have to correct one thing I said though in the initial review of this handgun. In that video I mentioned that the optic mounting platform on the RXM is similar to that used on the Springfield Armory Echelon. Had to stop and think what it was for a minute. And in that video I said that I didn't think the Echelon mounted the smaller carry type optics of the RMSC type footprint, and I was wrong. I went back and checked that later on and found out that yes, the Echelon does accommodate those type of sights along with the larger RMR pattern sights and also several others. So apologies to Springfield Armory and all of you Echelon fans out there. The Echelon will accommodate at least as many different types of optics as the RXM and maybe even a few more. Even so, this is still very versatile in terms of the number of optics that the RXM will accept, and there's been no problem through the course of 250 rounds with the O-sight loosening or anything like that. I did torque it to proper specifications, and there's not been an issue whatsoever with that. When it comes to the grip of this handgun, I'm sorry, I don't like it. I'm going to roll in some footage of some defensive drills. Now, clearly it is capable of being shot well. But after I get done with this footage of shooting some of the defensive drills with the RXM, we'll come back and I'll tell you what it is about this grip that I don't like. Yards. Let's see how these go. And 2 7-yard failure drills. Throwing anything. Let's go see where they hit. So what do I not like about the RXM grip? I don't like the fact that it is shaped like a block of wood, basically. There is no contour to this backstrap whatsoever. And when I grip it, that's really what I think of. Is I feel like I'm wrapping my hand around a block of wood. There is nothing that matches the lines of my hand when I'm holding on to it. So recoil tends to be a little bit more noticeable than something that fits my hand a little bit better, that tends to rock somewhat with my hand. I have no idea why Magpul designed the grip this way. It's just not very good. The one thing that I will praise it for is the fact that it has a different grip angle than Glock uses, so this pistol does point very naturally for me. When I bring it up, the sights come to my eye, or in this case, the dot in the optic comes to my eye. So I like the angle, and that's about the only thing I like about it. The texturing is not all that great. Again, the circumference, the lack of contour, etc., I just don't care for. The little shelf at the front of the frame for resting your thumb on a thumb's forward grip or for indexing your trigger finger is okay. It's not phenomenal, but it's okay. It more or less does what it's supposed to. The trigger on this pistol, I mentioned in the initial review that I was noticing some inconsistency. When I weighed the trigger in that video, I was getting trigger pulls that were about 5.5 pounds. And then all of a sudden I got one that was just over 4 pounds. And I still notice that. I think it's gotten a little bit better over the course of 250 rounds. And I'm going to keep shooting this thing. I want to see how it's doing at about the 500 round mark. But still, even yesterday when I was conducting the accuracy test, I again noticed that I would start to squeeze the trigger. And there's one target that I'll show you here soon where I have a shot that I absolutely didn't count. It was the very first shot when I loaded that ammunition and I rested the pistol on the bag, and I just started my trigger press and I got one of those light pulls and the shot went high and to the right. So I ended up with a 5-shot group. I added another shot to that group, so I had 5 good shots, and I counted those, and it ended up being a pretty good group. And as I said in my first video, you really only notice that if you're shooting slowly and trying to maximize your accuracy. If you're shooting quickly, you go right through that and you just never notice that differentiation in the trigger pull. But I definitely was noticing it when I shoot at a slower or even a more moderate pace. If it's not really slow, but I'm just slowing down a little bit to try to watch my sights, I can notice that inconsistency in the trigger, and I don't like it. The magazines worked fantastically. I have 2 PMags that came with the pistol. The only thing I noticed with them is they are 15-round magazines, and for both of them, trying to get that 15th round in takes some work. Now those springs may relax a little bit over time and that will get easier, but functioning, as I said before, has been no problem whatsoever. I also tested it with a Glock magazine, no problem. And I tested it with a UTG magazine of all things. And by the way, that's been a pretty darn good magazine. I don't think I've ever had a malfunction with it for any of my firearms, which take Glock magazines, which to this point has only consisted of my Kel-Tec Sub 2000. But that QTG magazine is intended for a Glock 17, so it protrudes from the bottom of this grip somewhat. And actually, I used that for my accuracy testing yesterday, because what I noticed is I could rest my forearms, or actually my arm right behind my hand, on the bags, and then that protruding magazine I could sort of lock in on the front of the bag, and I was not getting a bounce off the bag as though I was resting the magazine itself on top of the bags, but it just seemed to help steady it a little bit. So maybe that's another thing we can put in the plus category for this grip if you use a Glock 17 or longer magazine, is it gives you a steadying point if you happen to be shooting off of bags. But as I said, overall, I don't like it. The extended magazine release helps somewhat when you're dropping the magazines, and I didn't have any problems with magazines sticking in this. When I was shooting defensive drills and I would get to the point where I would reload, I just dropped the magazine, reloaded with another one, and never had any issue with that. Now let's move on to the accuracy portion, and I'll roll in some footage of me actually shooting some of these different types of loads. I'll show you the accuracy I was able to get. This was all shooting rested from a distance of 15 yards using the O sight as my aiming point in order to be able to get these groups. So let's take a look. Folks, again, I apologize for the rough production quality today, but everything is about speed. Looking at the accuracy that I was getting while I was shooting yesterday, I started out with Blazer brass, and I did this for a reason. Part of why I did not show any preliminary range results, or at least any preliminary accuracy testing in my first video with the RXM, is because the accuracy that I was getting from the bench was just not very good. And I think that had more to do with the ammunition that I was using that day than it did with the RXM itself. I was using some very inexpensive ammunition that I got from Cabela's a while back called Herders, and I've had problems with that ammunition in other firearms. And what was happening when I was testing the accuracy with the RXM is I would get, out of a 5-shot group, 3 shots that were in a pretty tight group, and then all of a sudden I would have 1 or 2 shots that were just unexplained flyers. It was very strange. And I had a feeling that was ammunition related. I also tried a tack shot when I was out there during my initial accuracy test with that ammunition. The RXM was not a tack driver with the Herders ammunition, and again, I think that has more to do with the ammunition than the pistol itself. I was going to try the tack shot again yesterday with some ammunition the pistol liked, but there were so many people at the range that I was just not able to do it. It was all I could do to get this accuracy test completed that I have here. In any case, the first ammunition that I tested was Blazer brass 115 grain full metal jacket, and we can see it displayed a little bit of that tendency that I was seeing with the other ammunition, where I've got 4 shots that are pretty tight and then 1 of them that wandered over here. Now this could have been me. Maybe I threw that one a little bit. It looked like a good shot when the trigger broke. All of these looked like good shots. So I don't think it was me, but it could have been. I can't rule myself out there. But still, for defensive accuracy with full metal jacket ammunition, this isn't bad. That's going to work well for virtually anything you want to do other than maybe bullseye shooting. The next load that I tested, and I'm going to try to get close-ups of these so you'll be able to see them well, at least I hope, and you can pause the video and look at these closer, is with House of Pain Munitions 124 grain jacketed hollow point. This is defensive ammo. Look at this. We've got 4 shots there that are in probably about 1 inch center to center. This one probably opens it up to, I don't think that's 1.5 inches. Maybe I should grab my elementary school ruler quick. I shouldn't be in so much of a rush, I guess, that I get too sloppy. So looking at our Blazer brass, center to center, that's about 3 inches, just a touch less, maybe 2 7/8 inches. With the House of Pain 124 grain jacketed hollow point, altogether looks to be about 1 7/8 inches. And that best 4 is, yeah, I think under 1 inch, just under 1 inch center to center. So nice accuracy with the House of Pain. And let's move down to the center target. I think you can still see that well enough with the camera angle that I have now. Look at this group with the Corbon 125 grain jacketed hollow point. This is a plus P load, and it's a little tighter yet even than the House of Pain. We've got 5 shots that are in about 1 3/4 inches or just shy of that. So nice group with the Corbon 125 grain ammo. I will change the camera angle for these last two down here at the bottom. Winchester Silvertip, not looking bad. We've got 4 out of the 5 that are in this center portion of the bullseye here. One of them that went a little high and right. This one could be me. And I say that because when I had that light trigger pull that you'll see on the next target, that's exactly the direction that the shot went. So I can't rule myself out on that one. I didn't note that there was anything different in the trigger pull that time, but it could have been. I have to turn this so I can see it. Looks like the group is about 2.5 inches for all 5, and the best 4 are in about 2 inches center to center. So not bad with the Winchester Silvertip ammo. The group on the bottom right here is from the Apex, and this is the ammunition that I told you about that has the odd looking bullet that has a meplet that looks kind of like a Phillips head screwdriver. And with this stuff, it's funny because some of these you can actually see the different facets of that bullet as it was passing through the paper, but the RXM didn't like it too well. I've got 2 shots that almost went through the same hole here, but that overall group looks to be probably close to 4 inches. Actually not quite, 3.5 inches. So not horrible for defensive purposes, but definitely not a great group. And we are seeing that trending off to the left a little bit. So if I was going to use this stuff, I would make a sight correction to try to bring that over closer to the center of the target. By the way, this was sent to me by Ian and Tobias to use for an ammunition efficacy assessment coming up, hopefully soon in 2025. Thanks again to Ian and Tobias for providing this ammo. And on we go. I have 2 Nosler loads that I used while I was out there. These are both considered match grade loads by Nosler. The first was a 147 grain jacketed hollow point. And here again we see that tendency where we've got 4 shots that are in a pretty decent group, and then one of them went off on its own here. And we're also seeing with both groups from Nosler that tendency to print off to the left. The overall 4-shot group, when I get my elementary school ruler oriented properly, is about 2.5 inches or just shy of that, so it's not a horrible group. The best 4 are in just a shade over 1 inch, or maybe right at 1 inch, pretty much right at 1 inch center to center. The second Nosler group that we see here is a little bit tighter. We didn't see a flyer really with that one, and that is under 2 inches from 15 yards, about 1 7/8 inches, so not bad. Moving down to the center target, this was the one where I had the bad trigger pull that I was mentioning. The very first shot after I had just loaded up the pistol and positioned it on the bags and started my trigger press, I had that light trigger pull, that one where it just went when I didn't expect it, and that shot went right here, which is why I marked that shot. I fired out the remaining 4, and then I added 1 more round of this SIG 124 grain V-Crown ammunition, and the overall group's not bad. We're staying well centered there. That's probably another one that's just under 2 inches. That's about 1 3/4, and that is pretty much right at 2 inches center to center. So not bad with the SIG V-Crown. Now let's move down to the bottom of this target. This is the group from the 124 grain Federal HST, and not bad at all. We got 3 of them clustered right in the very center of the bullseye there, and 2 of them just off to the right and a little higher. And that's about, trying to get it, about 1.5 inches center to center. Not bad. Not bad at all from the Federal HST. And the last group, this is one I thought about adding another shot here, and discounting this one, but it was still such a good group, I decided not to. I saw the dot drop just before the trigger broke on this one. This is where I'm working against that 5.5, 5 3/4 pound trigger pull. And just before it broke, I saw that drop. I knew that shot was going to go low. But again, it really isn't a bad group, even with that in there. The best four are, looks to be about 1.5 inches. So we add that one in there, and we're right about 2 inches, or just a shade over that, center to center. Nicely centered in the target. So all of this to say, with ammunition the RXM likes, I think it's capable of some pretty good accuracy, and none of these groups are what I would say represent bad accuracy for defensive use. So bottom line, would I buy the Ruger RXM? No, I would not. I've got enough other handguns that already do all the things that I've tested with this pistol, and those other handguns do it better. They are more comfortable to shoot. They have better triggers. I just like them all better than I like the RXM. So I would not purchase this myself, but I'm going to purchase this pistol for one reason, and that's because of the optic mounting platform that I can use for multiple optics when I review pistol dots or other type of handgun optics in the future. If you don't have that specific need, then take a look at the RXM yourself and see what you think of it. For me, however, it's going to be what I would call an optics mule. That's not a very complimentary term, but it's a relatively inexpensive handgun that I can use for optic testing. I could get a Springfield Armory Echelon and accomplish the same thing, but they're more expensive, and for something I'm getting just to test optics, I would rather pay the lesser price for the RXM than the more expensive Echelon. Along those same lines, I think the RXM is a little overpriced. With an MSRP of $499, I think that's $50, $75 or so overpriced for a Glock Generation 3 clone. So there's going to be a lot of differing opinions on that, but I just think it should be a little less expensive than it is. Then again, I think the same thing with a lot of different products, so take that for what it's worth. In the end, the RXM is an extremely reliable handgun, or it has been in my testing. It is certainly accurate enough for anything you could reasonably ask of a handgun of this type, and with some types of ammunition, as we've seen, it's pretty darn accurate, even beyond what we might expect. But it doesn't do anything any differently than a lot of handguns do. It does have the modular fire control insert that, at least presumably at some point in the future, you'll be able to swap out and put into a different frame if you want to do so. In any case, that's my 250 round update and my initial range report for the Ruger RXM. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, as always, make sure you forward those to me. Remember, stop by my website, hrfunk.com. Check out all the news and information there on the news and information page, and also stop by the products page and take a look at all the various manufacturers whose links are listed there, and be sure to check below those manufacturers for some information that might save you a couple of bucks if you decide to make a purchase from one of them. See you next time, folks, and until then, good shooting. Bye-bye.